And we raise the bar,
yes.
and we go back to the great Anne Applebaum. You're writing about Trump's hosting of a Saudi-backed golf tournament while the stock market was plummeting earlier this month. The piece is entitled Kleptocracy, Inc., and in it you write in part, quote, "Once upon a time, and not even that long ago, blatant conflicts of interest, especially involving foreign entities, were something presidents sought to avoid. No previous inhabitant of the White House would have wanted to be seen doing personal business with companies from countries that seek to influence American foreign policy. During Trump's first term, the court system largely blew off his commercial entanglements. Now he not only does business with foreign as well as domestic companies that have direct interest in his policies, he advertises and celebrates them. We know the identities of the golf tournament sponsors, not because investigative journalists burrow deep into secret contracts, but because they appear on official websites and were displayed on a billboard observed by the New York Times at his golf course. Both the website and the billboard would have been scandals in any previous administration. If they are hardly remarked upon now, that's because Trump's behavior is such a symptom of something much larger. We are living through a revolutionary change, a broad shift away from the transparency and accountability mandated by most modern democracies and toward the opaque habits and corrupt practices of the autocratic world. So, Anne, take us a step further into this, and what are the dangers here? Because it appears when you have these blaring signs, instead of doing things quietly, you are also inuring the American people to the autocracy in the making that is happening before their eyes.
Yeah, you know, Mika, a few minutes ago, you asked me about Trump's strange admiration for Vladimir Putin. You know, and perhaps the deeper affiliation goes back 30 years into Trump's business practices. You know, he's been involved in an industry, the real estate industry, that relied on secret Russian money coming through anonymous bank accounts, buying anonymous properties in his businesses for many years. He's been dealing in that world, in the kleptocratic financial world, his whole life. In his first term, he was restrained by people around him, by perhaps by some ongoing anxiety about legality. He didn't bring all of those practices, some of them, not all of them. He didn't bring all of those practices into the White House. Now he clearly feels he can do whatever he wants. He's openly taking money from the Saudi backers of golf tournaments taking place at his golf course. You had earlier in this program a story about how his cryptocurrency money is accepting so-called investments from people. He then invites those investors to the White House. So he's using his position in the government to make money for himself and for his family personally. And of course, he set an example that's being followed by a whole legion of people around him. I mean, start with Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk is somebody who has been involved in firing people and changing the policy at government agencies that regulate his own companies or that subsidize his own companies. So he has such a profound conflict of interest that it's hard even to know what to call this. You know, if you run a company and you get to decide what happens to the regulatory agency that regulates you, then what are you? I mean, what you are is an oligarch. That's the political system in Russia that created massive webs of conflicts of interest and corruption. And I think it's also important to remember where those systems end. They end with people being made poorer. The system is rigged. The economy is altered so that it benefits people in power, so that it benefits people who are close to power. And it's not good for the rest of us.
And so, and part of this plan that this administration and Donald Trump himself have sort of been running in the last several months is to clear out any oversight. So fire the watchdogs, fire the people who typically under a regular administration would be on this stuff and say, hang on a second, you can't do that. You can't sell and personally profit from Bitcoin and then invite all the people to incentivize them, invite them to the White House, to special ceremonies at your golf clubs and to meet you at VIP events. So is that not not part of what he was doing when he was firing not just the tens of thousands of government employees, the rank and file, but these people whose job it was to watch exactly the kind of practices you're talking about.
Yeah, in one night of the long knives at the very beginning of the administration, they fired 17 government inspectors. And these are exactly those people. These are the people whose job it was to make sure there are no conflicts of interest, to make sure there's no corruption. You know, they talk a lot about fraud and waste, but there were systems in the government designed to block fraud, to block exactly this kind of double dealing. And Trump has dismantled them. I mean, I would say his administration has also announced that it won't enforce other government laws that are designed to block these kinds of practices. There's something called the Corporate Transparency Act. They're not going to enforce that. There's something called the Foreign Bribery Act that prevents American and other companies from bribing foreign companies. They're from paying bribes, and they're not going to enforce that either. So they're dismantling a whole apparatus of it's not just regulation, it's the law of laws that were designed, that were put in place in order to prevent fraud and kleptocracy from spreading inside our political system.
You can catch more on Anne's argument here about what's happening in the Atlantic. Her piece is entitled Kleptocracy, Inc. And I just want to circle back to the conversation we were having about Ukraine with all the comments that we have been covering from the president, the vice president, and what is happening right now in this war. And my brother mentioned earlier about Trump's approach to Russia, and I want to ask you, is it appeasement, or how would you describe it? Because to an extent, Ian was saying that Biden, had an approach to this war that obviously was supporting Ukraine, supporting the people who are fighting for the safety of the world. And Trump's is very different. And how would you describe it? Is it weaker, as Ian contended? And is it appeasement?
You could use the word appeasement. You could use weakness. You could also begin to ask, is this really about business deals? Are there people around Trump who are expecting some kind of financial benefit from a relationship with Russia? Is this really about, creating, another lawless zone of relationships between America and Russia? We don't know. And actually, the fact that we don't know, the fact that this is all hidden, the fact that it's not clear what Trump's motives are, I mean, that's already a sign of autocratic behavior. In democracies, your leadership is transparent. We knew what Joe Biden wanted in Ukraine. When he said it, we knew what he meant. In the case of Trump, we don't really know what his motives are. We don't know even what it means when they say we're going to walk away. There's so much opacity and so much lack of clarity, and the lack of clarity is deeply connected to these practices that we're seeing at home. Conflicts of interest. Double dealing, the relationships between people in the administration and private business. We don't really know for whom they're acting. Are they acting in the interests of the American people, or are they acting in their own interests?
Staff writer for The Atlantic, Anne Applebaum, thank you very much. It is always great to have you on the show. We really appreciate it.